looks so easy to be up here. Appreciate that. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for gathering here today at the Gentle Teaching 2024 conference. And a special warm welcome to those who have traveled from afar today. Welcome to Regina. I hope you enjoy it. As stated, my name is Jory Kashane, and I'm an Anishinaabe from the Yellow Quill First Nation. My people are Soto speakers, part of the Algonquian language group, which actually incorporates a lot of different cultures and languages in it, including the Cree, Ojibwe, Blackfoot, Mi'kmaq, Arapaho, Menominee, Delaware, Shawnee, Cheyenne, and more. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and I'm also a trauma therapist here in the city. I was asked to start the day with a land acknowledgement so that everyone can understand about the land that we're on today. I've been to many places where land acknowledgements are short and sweet. And I've often felt like it does a bit of disservice to the land that we're on and the history of this land here. So I wanted to kind of give you some more information. To understand the significance of any land acknowledgement and to ensure that we honor the spirit and intent of this meaningful gesture, I want to delve into the history of the land prior to colonization. Turtle Island, now known as North America, was rich in diversity. The ways of the First Nations people were based on many of the same values that gentle teaching espouses: compassion, interconnectedness, nurturance, community, and the protection of the most vulnerable, in this case, nature and the environment. The Indigenous people of Turtle Island were and continue to be stewards of the land, living in balance with their environment and understanding the interconnectedness of all things. Indigenous worldview is built on respect, harmony, and the wisdom of natural law, natural sciences, and natural economies. The communities that inhabited this land were rich in culture, highly evolved, and possessed a deep understanding of themselves as a part of the land itself. In the mid-19th century, as settlers continued to move westward, the Canadian government sought to establish treaties with the First Nations to ensure colonial expansion and eventual ownership of as much land as possible. The city of Regina sits on the seceded lands of Treaty 4. Treaty 4 was negotiated in 1874 between the Crown, the Cree, the Saulteaux, Dakota, and Lakota people. It was signed just a mere 45 minutes away from the city in Fort Qu'Appelle. If you get a chance to see it, it's gorgeous. Please understand that many Indigenous people signed a number of treaties under duress. The loss of the buffalo, the intentional gifting of smallpox blankets resulted in catastrophic deaths, and the breakdown in traditional communities and families, alongside the disruption caused by residential schools, led to a population that was vulnerable and desperate to seek a healthy and safe way forward. That is why it's important to understand that the treaties are not just legal documents. Instead, they represent a profound relationship between Indigenous nations and non-Indigenous Canadians. For First Nations, this agreement was about more than land cessation. It was about ensuring the rights to life and livelihood, including hunting, fishing, and gathering, and about protecting their way of life. It was also about trying to ensure peace and mutual respect. When Treaty 4 was signed, the Crown agreed to an exchange: cessation of the land in exchange for education, healthcare, and other forms of support. However, the implementation of the exchange has fallen short by the Canadian government, leading to ongoing struggles for First Nations communities. The legacy of these broken promises and the legacy of residential schools continue to affect many Indigenous peoples today. Yesterday was Orange Shirt Day, a day where we wear orange to remember those who were victims of residential school systems, many of whom did not come home. Every Indigenous person in Canada has been personally affected by residential schools in some way. My grandmother, both of my parents, all of my aunts and uncles, my brother, some of my cousins, all attended residential schools. The last residential school in Canada closed in 1998. I was 18 years old, not to age myself here, but I was 18 years old, so very recently. The effects of the residential school system are still felt deeply in our communities, leaving a mental health crisis that has very little support. Yet still today, the organizations that Canada proudly boasts about, healthcare system, education system, social services, and the government itself, continue to engage in harmful and systemically racist practices that put Indigenous people at a greater risk and disadvantage. Many Indigenous cultures, languages, and traditions were and continue to be deeply affected by colonization. Yet we as a people continue to thrive. The resilience and strength of First Nation communities shine through our art, storytelling, and cultural practices. Engaging with and respecting these cultures is vital for all of us, which is why I'm always honored to work with CORE, Creative Options Regina, and their inclusive and respectful community. Today, as we reflect on the ideas of gentleness, honoring diversity, and supporting connectedness, it's essential to recognize the contemporary issues faced by First Nations people in Treaty 4. Indigenous communities and our allies are working tirelessly to reclaim our rights, culture, and land. This includes addressing matters related to homelessness, food security, education opportunities, land use, resource management, and self-governance. The fight for justice is ongoing, and it is imperative that we listen to Indigenous voices, support their efforts, and make room for them to take up space in our workplaces, social circles, sports, and other organizations. If you attend any event, whether work or social, and you don't see any visibly Indigenous people there, ask yourself why. Then ask yourself how. How can we bring our treaty counterparts into this space? As we move forward, please consider your role in this journey of reconciliation, no matter where you are from. We all have a responsibility to educate ourselves about the histories, cultures, and rights of the Indigenous people of the land we live and work on. This involves advocating for systemic changes, supporting Indigenous-led initiatives, and fostering relationships built on trust and respect. You can also engage in meaningful dialogues that challenge stereotypes and misconceptions, there it is, about Indigenous people. By amplifying Indigenous voices and stories, we contribute to a more gentle, compassionate, nurturing, and connected society. In closing, I invite you to carry this acknowledgement with you beyond today. Let's honor the legacy of Treaty 4 by committing to learning, understanding, and supporting all First Nations of all the lands. Together, we can work toward a future that recognizes and respects the rights of all of the people. Thank you for your attention, and let us continue to walk this path together in solidarity. Thank you.